Hi everybody and welcome to the Week in Tech. I'm Aisha and this is my co-host Karamjit. As usual, we're going to start with the cover story for this week. And we have the CEO of PM himself, Dr. Zamzam, talking about HSBB. And this was actually written by Karam. He was in Singapore for Communique Asia. And so Karam, what's the story this week?
Well, really, I mean, although the title is, HSBB is that prominent in the headline, right? And there is obviously a lot of interest about the progress of high-speed broadband. But it's just although it's a major component, it's not, the be-all and end-all for telecom. As I mentioned in the article, I got the sense that this is really one of the components, that telecom is working on in its performance improvement, project, right, that they started in 2006. So it's quite interesting how they're moving the company about. And Zam himself is quite an interesting guy. But just talking about this, at least this story, this is just part one, because part two is coming up next week. And in just part one, I just spoke about how they put some of the pieces together as early back as 2007, when Telecom is the lead telco in a coalition of 17 telcos, which are building, or almost completed building a Asia-America gateway, and that's a 20,000 kilometer fiber optic, submarine cable linking from Malaysia to a few other countries, Vietnam, Singapore, and then directly, to the US.
Right.
So it doesn't go through the normal route, which is through the Pacific, Hong Kong, or Japan.
Right. Is Malaysia the hub then?
Because Telecom is the lead in this coalition,
right.
So it looks like they probably paid the bigger proportion among the 17 telcos, And because Zam also speaks like Telecom is the lead player, and he says that he hopes that with this direct link, which is already completed, I think, and they hope to start switching on the pipes, from next month. He says what's going to happen with this is that we're going to have a direct link, from Asia to the US. And that's going to reduce the number of hops that ISPs have when they link to the US, because unfortunately a lot of the content in the English-speaking world still comes out of the US.
Yeah.
And he said they'll reduce the number of hops, and then it'll make it cheaper for ISPs in the region too. Instead of linking up, directly to the US, which some of them choose to do, now they can link up directly to Malaysia, and then and from here, your next hop is straight to the US. So he's looking at that, and intriguingly enough, he's also using this as an attraction to get content providers in the US, to come and co-locate or have mirror sites in Malaysia then.
Right.
And he says the value add is that then their customers will be able to, have a better user experience on their site, because it's going to be a lot faster. And also they'll be able to better serve their corporate customers too. So that's the interesting thing, he's going to use that. So you've invested in this cable, and then now he's going to try to get those big guys to come here. And there's even more reason then for telcos, ISPs within, Southeast Asia or even Asia, to just have direct links into Kuala Lumpur, which is going to be good for Telecom Malaysia. But he also, it was good that he acknowledged that Singapore is actually already an ISP hub anyway. But he says there's no reason not to have a second hub, and they can be a secondary hub, and that's the game they want to play. And he showed there's value in this, because ISPs always talk about diversity, right? They don't want to put all their eggs in one basket. And the earthquake in Taiwan back in 2006 showed that, almost all the traffic was going out through Taiwan to the US, and that disrupted traffic for a while. And he said during that period, Telecom Malaysia carried a lot of Singtel's traffic, to the US, out of the Indian Ocean gateway. So there's real value in that. That was pretty interesting. But he spoke about a few more things, what they're going to do. But what's going to come up in next week's issue, I think, which we're going to write on part 2, is really interesting. And this is where, for all you guys who are watching and ladies, who are watching the Week in Technology, this is where after you're hearing this, you're going to go out and meet people and bring up this point and then say, hey, but didn't you watch the Week in Technology? Because actually what he said was that Telecom, and I was amazed by this, Aisha, has 60% of its workforce, and I think they have a workforce close to 30,000 people, are above 50 years of age, and I was amazed at that, 60%. And he brought this up because I told him that one of the leading consultants in Kuala Lumpur told me that, GLC transformation, they've done really, really well, but they've handled the low-lying fruits, which is procurement, which is reorganizing the businesses and maybe hiving off some of the non-core businesses. But then all over the world, GLCs which have formerly incumbents, which have come out from the government's embrace and become, private entities. At some point, to move up the next value chain or to take the next growth spurt, they have to do two things. They have to right-size the organization, and they also have to reduce. They not just right size is one, and the second thing is they have to be involved in mergers and acquisitions, whether you end up being the target or you are the acquirer. And of course, these two are very political, in nature in Malaysia. And during the Communic Asia, the CEO for one Pakistan telco said that when they, took themselves out from the government, one of the key things they did was to offer the most lucrative VSS scheme, the country has ever experienced. Excuse me. I think the reason for that was obvious. You want to make it easy for people and want people rushing to the gates to get out of the company because they're making it so, so valuable and so attractive for you. That's how this Pakistan telco right-sized, and that struck me about telecom too, because I think they do need to right-size. When I asked Zam about that, that's what he said. They've got 50%. I mean, 60% of their staff over 50.
Right.
And he said that
which means in the next few years they'll probably lose 60% of their staff.
Yeah, and all in the next few years. But they will also be very selective in the kind of people they bring in, because when you have an all IP network, it's going to be people with very strong IT skills that you need to bring in. Whereas the existing legacy system is going to be very engineering based, right? Mm-hmm. So he said in the early stages they're going to run both lines, right, both networks at the same time. So you need people with the legacy skills and you need new people who are coming in. And he said right now they're in the midst of hiring 900 people who will be mostly young people with diplomas and above and who are very ICT savvy. Mm. So this transition period will be good for telecom. And he said that gives time for the young people to learn some of these legacy skills too, because I don't know how long telecom plans to maintain them. They could even, come up with a deadline to say we're not going to carry streaming support, anymore within 2 or 3 years. But that's a business decision they will make. But for this time now, that's how he's turning that to his advantage and not making the hard decisions about, right-sizing the organization, which is pretty interesting. So 60% of their staff are age 50 and above. So that's a stat you can share with people and talk about this, migration from, IP network, legacy network to the IP network. That was something interesting. And there's also a second point which I mentioned was that he's talking about a new business model. So with everything becoming bits and bytes, old school telcos or, fixed line telcos need to find a new business model. And especially he's talking about how would they charge for the content that's going through their pipes. Mm. So he really said that
monetizing the content.
Monetizing, yeah. Even though the content doesn't belong to them, right? Mm. But he said they want to start having a say or start trying to play in that role too.
I'm not so sure if the content players will be too happy because that's their percentage that's been taken away.
Yeah, but he says that they're going to be the highway, for how you want to deliver your content, no matter in which way and form. Which also tells me that at some point they're going to go into the wireless space too, or to what extent I don't know. But it's pretty interesting. But Aisha, also the cover story that you showed, there's a picture there which was quite interesting, and you're talking about your own commentary, right, on biotech. So let's hear it about this very smart and brainy lady.
Right. Actually, my commentary this week is about investing in the people, building up the human capital, which I think the MSc has made a huge mistake when it first started 10 years ago. Now we have problems where graduates are unemployed, they're not good enough, we need to retrain them. Okay. Industry are complaining that, they're not up to speed, they've already gone to nanotechnology, these people are learning microtechnology, So anyway, and I coincidentally, I chose this cover picture. And in the biotech space, this lady, Dr. Hayley Chong, I'm not so sure what her last name is, she's actually a very renowned scientist in Malaysia, and I think she's actually, according to the InnoBio CEO, she's the first scientist in Malaysia to humanize monoclonal antibodies.
And she's got a patent.
Yeah, and she's got a few patents too, right? Yeah, so but that watch out for my commentary. That's all the time that we have here. Boy, time sure flies really fast when you're having fun. Like as how Karam would say, have a productive week in technology, and thank you for your time.
And we'll see you next week.